Welcome to part 2 of Salesforce for Architects and Developers video series. In part 2, let's together build a sample Salesforce application. Let's call it the mining app that we will be developing together. Along the way, we will visit the many key capabilities of Salesforce and how they differ from development applications using .NET or Java programming languages. Also, now and then we will take a pause and discuss architecture aspects of what we are putting together. And again, comparison with the usual programming languages for building such applications. All of you know that when starting to think about a solution or building an application, the very first thing is that what is the requirement? So in all applications, doesn't matter what platform or programming language has to be used, one needs to know the use cases, user stories, actors or players involved with using the application. And then the mock-up screens and the data elements or the domains of data that would be impacted. Data types will be text or GIS type data, and integration points, integration to other systems, integration to, for example, identity management, and the batch jobs, reports, maybe dashboards, and so on that would be required. After having had the requirement, what we usually do, we put the high-level architecture or conceptual architecture solution brief together, along with estimates to get a rough order of magnitude effort and cost estimation for the application. Then we are expected to create a design document or solution design with components describing the key parts of the system and how they communicate to one another, how they are deployed and accessed, and so forth. Next, we have to set up the dev environment and the test environment, and later on prod and DR or disaster recovery environments has to be set up. And in most three-tier applications, what do we need is the web server, app server, the database server, plus firewalls, identity management, infrastructure, and so on. Next, what usually is done, the data model close to the final version or so is created based on the requirement and the domains that have been affected, and the mock-up screens would guide what sort of data would be used in the system. And then as the next step, having the backend or the data model, the front end has to be put together, and the controllers, the middle part that would connect the front end to the back end has to be put together to give us the MVC for model view controller. Of course, there would be reports in 99% of the cases that has to be created. And as part of the development, unit testing, plus system testing and integration testing, test cases have to be written and executed. Finally, the application has to be packaged with all the resources, images, style sheets, etc., deployed to the right environment to become available for the public to use. Of course, the security or penetration test and load test or response time test also might be performed depending on the volume and the pattern usage of the system. Monitoring and maintenance would follow, checking the health of the system, verifying the logs, and recycling the logs, and so on. In traditional Java and .NET environments or J and .NET, all the above steps have to be taken, and generally it takes quite a bit of time and effort to do all of this. Of course, there could be libraries, reusable libraries or services that could reduce the effort, but still it's a significant. Generally, it is a significant effort to bring a solution together. Well, our imaginary mining application, the requirement could be as follows. There are individuals or companies are in the business of mining across Australia or particular state would be preparing and sending uh, mining activity related applications to the Department of Mining. They have to fill an online form and attach the supporting documents and forward it to the respective authority. Here is the Department of Mining. Each application for development of a mine uh, gets a case number or an application number and is passed on through the process for review and approval. When application is received, it gets the status new and is assigned to an officer to review the request, and an email is sent to the applicant that yes, thank you, we have received your application. While the application is sitting to be reviewed or being under review, it will have a status under review. An application could get rejected or accepted. In either case, it gets closed at the stage or life cycle of it. Rejected ones get the status closed, rejected, and the accepted one become closed and accepted. The accepted ones are moved into a new queue, new process, uh, which it will have its own life cycle. After the application is moved to the new queue or with the closed accepted status, it might require further processing in terms of payment, environmental impact, and so forth. And throughout the life cycle of the application, it should be possible for the customer to see the status of his or her application. So far, the actors or roles or profiles that we talked about, we had applicant, could be an individual or organization. We have got the staff who review the application, let's call them mining officers, and possibly there are others that we shall see. Based on the requirements that we just went through, this mining application would be using or involving the domains of organization, uh, the individual, mining department staff, mining application of the application itself, land parcel, particular area of land that the mine will be set up or has been proposed to be created. And if we translate these to Salesforce terminology, if you remember from part 1 of this video series, account equivalent of an organization, contact is the individual, and the staff are the users, and we have got mining application. We can see there is no equivalent to mining application, while the top 3 are the standard objects or S objects. Number 4, the mining application is a custom object. We have to create it. And we talked about the land parcel and GIS point or location. Uh, that is within the mining application. There is no need in this case to have a separate table for it, or separate object or custom object. Based on the requirement that we just went through, we have got the applicant, we have got the contact, the account, the application for mining. We have got a status or queue for successful applications. And of course, we had the rejected ones that could be part of the mining application. This is our other queue, the second queue. This is our first queue. We have got the users have got an account to log into Salesforce, and we have got the staff. Currently, most of the staff and the users are the same. Now, this different, we know that the contact and account, they already exist in Salesforce, built in. We don't have to create custom objects. The only custom object is where the application is going to be sitting, or the mining application. And the mining application has to have these columns, or that table has to have these columns. That object has to have this Salesforce terminology fields: first name, last name, email, address, type of mine, location of mine or geolocation, and address of the mine, a description of the mine, supporting documents that need to be attached, for example, drawings. Salesforce has its own way of handling attachments, notes, free text, projected revenue, currency, dollar, number of miners or staff, employees who would be working, and a status of the application. We said that it's going to be the new, under review, close, rejected, and close, accepted. While this, of course, is a very simple or oversimplified scenario, it is perfectly in line with usually what happens with most of regulatory type systems. Applications comes to a regulatory body. It goes through a process of approval with specific fees and all that attached to it, and documentation, evidence, and the process approval, and that is it. And potentially reviews and later on audits, or in case of violations, would be cases created for prosecution and so on. In order to save time, as opposed to creating this specific table, the mining application, which I have already created it, we're gonna go through creation of a table or an object and all the bells and whistles that goes with that to see what it takes, how it works. And however, as we go forward, we're going to use the more complete objects that I have created outside of this exercise that we are going through. Definitely it would save quite a bit of time. Otherwise it would bore you to death. Okay, back to our Salesforce console. This is not really referred to as a console because we do have a developer console, but it is fine. Yeah, we call it console or Salesforce Lightning user interface. You remember that I mentioned we usually go to the setup, which is what we see here. And in this case, we want to create an object. Either we create it from here, get it started, or in the quick find, I put the object, and I can see object manager comes up. These are the existing objects. and I want to create a custom object, and we give it a name. We give the test object 2 and plural label test object 2s. Imagine if it had been account, it would have been accounts, and description, etc. Open the standard Salesforce help and training, that is fine. Open Windows using the Visual Force page. We'll skip it for now. A quick note, why Salesforce is asking for the plural label. The reason is Salesforce automatically creates screens for the standard and custom objects. In order to make it look right, it makes use of the right grammar or so, and hence it gets help by specifying what it is expected to be. And similarly with error messages and so on. Okay, here enter record name, label, and format. It says record name, test2 name, and text. If I click here, we see text and auto number. This is really the primary key of this table, and in many cases it is just called name. It is like it is test2 or name or account name or contact name. Sometimes we don't want that. We want to do this to be primary key. If I call it primary key, or maybe I call it key, and it doesn't have to be text, which is, it looks like a hexadecimal number, but of course it is text. If I go with the number, it allows me to specify if it has to be numeric. If I choose, I don't know, 6 or 5 numbers, just here, it will to the start with 001 would be the key for this particular table. Allowing reports to be created, again, Salesforce does it automatically, the reports that would help with that. Allow activities, things would happen you could see related to this table. We just leave this. Tracking field history. In many systems, it is necessary to keep a history of what was changed, when, who, and so on. Audit. And just imagine that the name of a person could change due to different reasons, and it would be always necessary to know what was the name of the person previously. Allow in chatter groups. Chatter is the instant messaging version or so of Salesforce, and it is used in many cases, that especially when there is a communication between a customer and an officer, through the screens the chatter could be present, and messages back and forth could be recorded, and they stay within the system. Object classification, allow sharing, bulk API access, streaming API, these are all fine. It says deployed. If check that in development, it won't be visible until it becomes deployed. Allow search, yes, if you would like search. Add notes and attachments related to default page layout. Let us add it. I really haven't used the attachment myself. I thought I could just add a column to add attachment, but this is not how Salesforce works apparently. Launch new custom tab wizard after having saved, which is fine. We're going to have a tab object that would embody this table in it, and just save. This is the custom tab object for our test object 2. we can attach, let us attach an Apple or a TV or whatever relevant icon that we want to, and can have a splash page. We can skip this one. We go next. Here are the permission. Um, we have got different profiles or roles. Um, here, because of the account that I have created for myself, I'm an administrator. It says default is on, so I do have access to this object and every other profile. So every user has to have a profile. And imagine there could be a user with a read-only or part of having the read-only profile. So that user would be able to see what is in this table, but only allowed to read and not to edit or create. We go next. And we saw in that unstructured tool of Salesforce, there were different icons or apps that we had. We had the sales, and this is a sample application that I built. You can find it in the Trailhead. It's called Battle Station. These different application, now we are being asked, do we want the tab that would contain this object to become available for those within those applications? And we say yes, but usually you don't want it. And this is the role of the perhaps administrator, self-administrating the organization to turn this on and off. So if we just say save, make it easier for ourselves. And finally, here is our object with the detail. Its name, the real name is the system understands is test o2 _ C for custom, and it has, in terms of fields, it has got created by field. The key is that primary key. The field is the name, that is the key became the label of that, but as I mentioned, the name has been kept. And last modified, and the owner. The owner is important. Certain type of the users, for example, community type of users, they get access to only the records that they themselves are the owner. So this came out of the box again for this particular custom object that we have created. And we will be creating more fields maybe as soon as we finish going through this. Okay, we don't have to have anything else here. Compact layout, I believe it is for mobile apps. How the data would be presented as default for smaller devices. The search layout, this is how it is gonna look like. Page layout, we're gonna leave this as default until we add more fields to it. Then we're gonna change the layout together. There are no triggers against this table or object. And every time that Salesforce creates a particular screen or tab for an object, it automatically adds buttons to it, and buttons like create a new, and it is possible to edit those to give it a different name or remove it and so on. And what else is here? Okay, this object limits, like here it has got custom fields 500, approval process 500, etc. These have got lower limits because it is a developer license as opposed to an enterprise license, and hence would be restricting the usage of this free version of Salesforce that I'm using right now. Okay, I guess next best thing I could do is to create more columns or fields. But maybe before that, let us have a look at uh, the tab that was just created for it. Where do I go? I go to the setup, sorry, next to the setup, the icon next to the setup, and what is the one that we created? This here. I click again. I came back to test 2, and this time we get our apple that we have chosen as for the icon for the tab for this particular object, and we can see the key. This is the label for the primary key or the name is in here, but there is no data in this table that we have created. If we create a new record, all we will get is just the auto-generated number 00001, and there is nothing else. So before we do that, let us add something else, maybe first name, last name, all those fields that we had in our mining table or application table to see what it would take. At least we create some of them. And previously, when we saw the message that in here that this item doesn't exist or so, the reason was it was taking maybe 30 seconds, 15 seconds for the object to get created in Salesforce cloud. So it hadn't existed, but I had to refresh it, and it got shown after that. Okay, so let us create uh, some fields. Where do we go? Usual place. I can go back or back to setup, and we had the object, and the object that we created was test2all. I get into the object detail. I just go down the list, go to the field. I'm going to create a new one, new field. It immediately takes me to what type of field do you want to be created in this object. And what do you get usually with SQL Server, Oracle, or IBM database tables? Um, we have got text, numeric, or currency. We have got what else? We have got character, char, and long char, and object clubs, binary large objects. Let us see what Salesforce has got. It has got these categories are data types or field types or column types, um, auto number, we just saw, formulas, roll up summary. If this was the detail of a master table, or the other way around, it was the master of a detailed one, the roll up could be in here. And other type of fields or columns could be a lookup relationship. Let us say if the name of a states in Australia, it could have been a state, and the data for the states would come from the states table as a lookup, would be selected as it in a drop-down list. Master data relationship is similar, but there would be a foreign key of say another table in here, or the other way around, and it would create a dependency or master data relationship, and potentially one wouldn't exist with the other, meaning if the master didn't have the key data, then the child also couldn't have a record with that data. And there is some text in here. It says in such cases If the data in the master is deleted, all the child tables could get deleted, or they become orphans, or they get some sort of null values or so. And external lookup, the rest are easier. Logical true or false, checkboxes, currency, date, time, email. This is interesting, the geolocation. It has got two values in it, latitude, longitude, or XY coordinates, and number, person, phone, pick list. Here we could determine what should be the values, as opposed to up here coming from a lookup table. Pick list, we add what we expected, and here this next one is the multi-select pick list, and I believe this pick list you can make them global, so you don't have to recreate the same pick list again and again. Text area long, and URL. Uh, for example, if we look at this URL or email, let us add let us add an email. If I go next, label it is email, description of course is an email. Is it a required field? Yes. Is it unique? Yes. And it is not external ID, and that is it. Next. And what does it say? New custom field is a field level security. Every object has got the security that we just saw, that who could see it. Not just the object, even at the field level, it is possible to say what profile has got access to see that particular. So very fine granularity in terms of access of who can see what. For now, I believe everybody has got access to. This particular capability has been very important to some of my customers, that a cluster of different organizations, and one part of the organization doesn't want to share their data with the other one, or to be visible, or they want to limit the type of access. Salesforce would allow that. While the data is there, same table or set of tables, different groups have got different access rights or no rights whatsoever to the particular column or field or the table altogether. Next, is there anything else? It says add to page layout. Yes, the page layout that we had, the name is test object 2 layout. Yes, we would like it to be added. We save, upgraded the record. Okay, now if I want to get back to what we were seeing in test 2.0, here if I refresh, let me add a new. Okay, the key gonna get automatically created. Someone at new.com. The owner is me, Somadel, and I save a new, create another, and the email is happyme at gto.com, and save this one. So we have got 2 records so far, and what I just did, I went back to the list view or summary view, because there are I can't make this larger than what it is, otherwise the video, the characters would look very small. That is squeezed into this area, and the tab for test2 is here. It's got 2 records. Those keys got created automatically. They can be edited or deleted. If I go to the second one, it was the happy one, I think, happy minute GTO, etc. Now this particular field that is an email, if I had not used an @ sign, most probably it would complain. If I just go back to this and create a new record. And here I put here uut.com.au. Let us see if it accepts it. If I try to save, it says review the error, invalid email address because it doesn't have the @ sign. The point is this: Salesforce, the tables have got complex types, and by having complex types, it is capable of creating screens accordingly. If I had particular data type, it was a multi-select or so, or drop-down box would be created accordingly, and the screen would be built with all those capabilities. I remember in Java language, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that I was coding, I had to use regular expressions in order to ensure that the email address is properly ordered, or telephone numbers. The way like mobile numbers should be with 0 in there, or area code in there, or plus sign, or not plus sign, and so on. Let us see if this can be saved. Yeah, this time it took it. Let's go back to the table that we had. Close this. Set up. Oops. If I go to let us look at the layout. This is the layout that we have been seeing. This page looks a bit older type of user interfaces, and what we have got here: fields, buttons, and so on. If I go to buttons, clone, delete, edit, etc., fields. If we look at the fields here, the email which we had is here. If I click on email, it won't change. If I edit, oops, sorry, this is part of that. Okay, here we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. All of these are already available in here, and each of these is a section. Created a section. If I bring this down here, it's going to create another section. If I don't want the owner, which was some model, to be shown, I can drag this and drop it up there. And next section has got the created, but I don't want to see the created by. I think I could drop this back here so they become darker. And maybe email, I cannot put it up here. It says the field must be displayed and cannot be removed. I believe because we made this is a required field, so it becomes meaningless to have a screen that a required field cannot be viewed. So if I save this, and now we should see a difference. If we go back to that particular tab, which was available under the more, click on any of these. I still stay. Okay, it hadn't been saved. When I refreshed that, it just got disappeared. We had the owner before there. Okay, One thing else that so we talked about sections and there are columns in layouts. It is possible to change the layout to two or three columns and sections. So horizontally and vertically, there is a bit of a freedom that what can be done with the layout that is available. But that is it. It is not possible to just choose this key or this to be shown there and a picture in there. It is just limited to what we have got here. It is definitely better than the look and feel. And let us have a look at this same tab with the classic view. Let us see how it looks like. So if I go to, where was it? Switch to Salesforce Classic, and the tab was test object 02. That was the one here. So here is that view. These are the buttons that I was talking about. If we go to one of these, this is how it looks like. The key is there, the email, the owner is gone, it's not here, the apple is there, and what else? It is possible, as you saw in that layout, to get rid of this clone and delete. Those modifications are possible from here as well. And if I had to use this interface, go to setup, and again that quick find is here, and maybe I can go under layout, and everywhere there is a page layout, it comes up. It was a custom object. It might be possible to go to objects. Not sure if it comes up. Objects, create objects. Copy object is a bit different, and topics for objects, and it was this one. No, it is just the topics, not the object itself. All right. The way I used to do it when about 2 months ago, I used to use this interface, the classic one. Almost everything was underdeveloped, and it was objects or build, the schema builder, sorry, create objects. Now another way is that here it's got the recent items, and recent items test object is already here. If I click on it, it just takes me to the particular object. The same thing that we saw is almost in here as well. Standard fields, custom fields, we had the email, but like over there in the lightning user interface, they are combined, they're not separated. Here they're separated. We can add a new one, and the layout, the layout that we had, if I go to edit, you can see we see exact same thing, that user interface between classic and the lightning has been copied. They most probably they are working on it to change it. Anyway, one thing worth mentioning is this particular layout with the section and the fields, etc. When we do Apex programming, you will see the section the same way that the layout can be through configuration or so-called declarative programming can be managed and modified. It can be also changed programmatically. Okay, but there are better ways of doing that. However, still that is in use. One other thing that we have to do, and you would be doing, is going to looking at the schema It looks exactly the same from here in the font type schema or in the new look and feel. Again, go to schema. In fact, I saw here when you're in the update, you could jump to the schema directly from there. But let us type it, schema builder. And this is one we're going to look at for the mining app application. But we created the object test object 2, which is this. That there isn't much into that. It has got this 4 pre-built or so added column plus the key. And interestingly enough, I believe the red line indicates the mandatory ones. Yeah, it says here required fields. Now let us bring in the account table. It is not related to what we have got. If I have got the contact and account are related. And now we said contact is the organization, and contact is usually the person working for the organization or so. The interesting thing that having used many modeling tools, data modeling tools, I wasn't happy with the printing capability of this, which is really not there as such. I wanted to export this to Erwin or another data modeling tool and to do it there, but it's really undoable because the data elements here are complex objects like this pick list or the lookup. There is no equivalent of these in other data modeling tool, and these are objects as opposed to more primitive data types. So, and one good question is that, again, why Salesforce is doing it this way, because it wants to be able to automatically create the screens and the layouts and so on, having this, also building the relationships. Okay, we're going to see a bit more complex than this, just the extra simple table, what we have got in the mining, because in there I have made it to use the organization from the account as a lookup. We're going to look at it later on. For now, okay, so we have got a table, we have got a page layout, we have got a tab, we have got a few records in there. Let us say this is the main data and we are happy with it. Now in this whole Salesforce, we have to package this. To package this, kind of having some an umbrella around it or above it, we have to have an app. Through the app, we can get more control over it, including access rights and so on. So let us do that. I close these views and I go back to the setup again. And I go here to app, app manager. We want to create a new lightning app. What is the connected app? Connected apps are in that category of Internet of Things, IoT. So let us go with this lightning app. We called it test2, I believe, and developer name is test2 is fine. Description is, we can skip it. An image for the app, if we have a nice image we can put, otherwise it is going to use the acronyms of the app, perhaps a T or maybe T2. Oh, it's here, TE, first 2 letters. Okay, primary color, I don't know, maybe greenish, and next. Okay, standard navigation, that is fine. We will talk about the console navigation later on. Next, it says, do you want to add anything to this application? I'm going to add something simple. Say rich text. I don't know if it works. And then just to add some notes, I say next. Okay, select items. What is this one? Choose the items to include in the app. You can rearrange. Cases, files. Because you are technical, I just add the files that you will see what it does, and maybe test2 is our tab. So our application, the way that we are packaging it, we know it has got this test2 tab. We want that to be visible, and some files. These files are not attachments, but I guess they are resource files, and I don't know, maybe chatter. So this app must have 3 tabs in it, and these are the 3 tabs, I believe. So I say next. Who can see this? Available profiles. If I go system administrator and read only, solution manager, whatever it is. So save and finish. Okay, now we have a new app, and it is this app. So if I go to the apps, I should see that it is here, T-test2, and let us see what it comes back with. Okay, what do we have? Okay, here this application, our green color application, test2, has got these tabs. This tab is the one with the data that we had for that one custom table of test2, and then that only emails in it. It has got chatter for any communication back and forth, who said what, and files are resources. Let us see, what have I uploaded? Anything? Oh, that is me. Sorry, shouldn't have done that. When I had created another app, I added an image, and that was my picture, and that is why it has it in the resources, which are the files. Okay, that is it. So I talked about the packaging of app. I talked about the app itself. Now it is important to look at the next slide. Okay, I talked about that an app could work as an umbrella to hold objects belonging to that application, and from permission to layout to the tables or object or subjects to tabs, they all come under an app. And we had previously talked about when you get you pay Salesforce license fee, you get an account for your organization, you get an org. An org, a Salesforce org, consists of a number of apps, big and small, doing completely different things. And some of them use a specific object, some of them use the common objects, all of them use the common objects though. So if if this area would be the common objects or standard objects, I should call them, like account and contact. This app is using it, 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 this app is using it. It becomes extremely important with the architecture and configuration management. Who is doing what to this set of common tables or so? Is it just enough one of these applications or developers they make a mess out of this, and then everything else going to be affected? Salesforce has got some mechanism to protect itself, but it is not bulletproof. Still, good architecture work would be required to avoid that. And um, subject of the application doesn't become very critical, but it just has to be known. Okay, with this, let us have a quick look at actually what I had created for the mining object. That is what we will be using to build the rest of our application, as opposed to this test2 object that we just now created. There are many more fields in it. It will take only 5 minutes, and then we're going to finish this part after that. Okay, I go back to usual place, the setup, and maybe first we start with the schema, the table, the mining app. So if I go to schema again, schema builder, make it a bit smaller. What I don't want this test2 anymore. I want the mining application. If we examine it a little bit, see what is in here. Okay, we have got the contact and the account. The account name, there is a column or field called account name, just like that in here, and it has got the lookup. Whatever account is there, when a new record is created for the mining application, it's going to look up in this account. I'm going to choose one of those. We're going to create one record together. It has got the address, text, the application number. This is the primary key. It gets created automatically, and this would be a foreign key. And email, first name, last name, mining address, description, mining location. It says geolocation, and later on, when we add Google Maps and all that, we're going to use the data in here to show or pin and put pins on the map for the location of the mine. Number of miners, number, owner, that is fine. Revenue is the currency. Status is a pick list that I had created myself based on the requirement that we had for this. So if I now go to this, it is called mining app, MA. Mining app is here. There are only 3 records in here, and look at one of them. The organization is this is what is the lookup data. It comes from the other table or the account table, application name, first name, last name, etc. And look at the geolocation. This would be actually a point on a map. This is not made up. We will see this how it gets used. And if I go to edit, or maybe instead of that, if I go back, I can create a new record, and there are only 2 accounts here. One is the Edge Communications, one is the other one is Novo Services. So it doesn't let you type. You have to choose one of these. I put Novo Services, and there's a mandatory, etc. Latitude, longitude is optional, and that is it. I cancel this for now. So we have a mining application. It is related to the account, and we're going to see more of it when we build the rest of the mining application. So it is possible for a mining application to be submitted, and these are the details of it. The attachment, as I said, is a separate field or so, and there are no children for this table, so there is nothing related. Okay, now having had all of this plus the mining app, etc., what happened so far? What has happened so far? We have got an app, a mining app. It has got a table. It can have the detail of the application, but so far everything is for the backend. Everything is for the staff. What about the customer that either wants to see or wants to send an application? How are we gonna get there? That is the topic of our next video, part 3. Thank you. I hope this has been a useful session, and see you in our next video.